This week on Full Circle Florida, President Trump tackles education.
We're going to be returning education very simply back to the states where it belongs.
His executive order to shrink the Department of Education sparks debate and doubt. Our political analyst weighs in. Tax time triumph. Americans seeing bigger refunds this season. We'll break down why that's happening. And shining a light on denied health insurance claims. We take you inside our I-Team's Patient No More investigation. Welcome to Full Circle Florida. I'm Lauren St. Germain in for Paul LaGrone. While many of you were on spring break, it was a big week across the country with a lot of political news. President Trump made a move which aims to dismantle the Department of Education. He signed an executive order Thursday directing his education secretary to, quote, facilitate the closure of the agency and return education authority to the states. Also this week, a crucial step in a legal battle testing the court's authority over the Trump administration's approach to immigration and growing concerns surrounding the impact of the new tariffs on prices. It comes as the Fed announced its decision to hold interest rates steady. To get more perspective on all of these national stories, let's bring in our political analyst, Dr. Susan Macmanus. Dr. Macmanus, first of all, let's start with the executive order to shrink the education department. What are the consequences of this move for both schools and students?
Obviously, who gets what and when. Those are very key things. But it's very, very interesting in that for some areas, they're fearful, poor areas, they're fearful that there won't be enough money to help them do what they need to do educationally. For groups like the disabled, they're fearful that turning it over to the states would cause some problems with those students in need getting the proper programming and care and money and so forth. So there's a lot of concern about that. On the other side of it, for people who think that at least shrinking the Department of Education is a good thing, they point to the fact that it'd be much better if the states could be given a lump sum, let's say for a program, X, and let the states then decide how within that lump sum to spend it in their state, because the states differ in their economy, the student body, and all of the above. So there's a lot of different angles to this.
And it really depends on where you are in the country.
Yes, yeah. It does, very much.
And so has the U.S. ever tried to decentralize education like this before? Why is President Trump choosing to do this now?
Actually, Ronald Reagan tried very hard, but sort of encountered the same roadblock that other presidents have that try to do big things. The Congress wasn't willing to go along. But there you did see some examples of block grant programs following and trying to get rid of some of these categorical grant programs. But it's piecemeal, and this is like a big lump sum. Let's look at the whole thing instead of, well, let's look at this part of education, this part, and this part, which has been the trend in the past.
Mm-hmm. And you also said that when President Trump signed the executive order, the backdrop of the signing really stood out to you. Explain why. Immediately,
because behind him were several Republican governors who are all on board for this, because during COVID, and Florida would be one, these states kept their schools open because of a decision that they could make, and it wasn't imposed. Other states chose to keep lockdown and virtual learning. Mm-hmm. So there's that angle to it, for sure.
All right, we want to move now to another big topic this week, the immigration battle. A federal judge ordered the Trump administration to provide information about 2 flights that deported hundreds of Venezuelan migrants. Those planes were already in the air and did not turn around. So now the judge is questioning whether the administration defied the court's order. So we want to break this down. What are the legal reasons behind the judge's order to block these flights and demand more information?
Well, there's several, and this is a big power struggle between the executive and legislative branch. It's an epic separation of powers battle between the judiciary and the executive. The judge ordered the planes not to go or to turn back, and the government said they were already beyond the international line and they weren't coming back. So that's part of it. But another part of it is that the judge has repeatedly ordered the administration to explain in more depth how they did things, what discussions went on in the cabinet, and so forth. And the administration's response is, no, we don't have to, because this is the Safe Secrets Act that we can operate under, because this is national security and foreign policy. And so the Trump administration says the judge shouldn't have intervened because it is national security and foreign policy. And the judge is saying, but there's still a law that you did not obey.
All right, so piggybacking off of that, following the ruling, President Trump, several members of Congress called for the judge's impeachment. How do you see this playing out?
Not going to happen for the very basic reason that only Congress can impeach. And by the way, the Supreme Court Chief Justice reprimanded Trump for even mentioning that impeachment of a judge could take place. It can only be done by Congress.
All right, and then quickly, we want to wrap up talking about the economy. Interest rates holding steady this week at around 4.5%, according to the Fed. What were the reasons for that decision? And do you think the tariffs, the talk of the new tariffs, impacted that?
When you really look at the statement by the Fed, one of the overriding things that caused them to stay as it is a really lot of uncertainty about the tariffs. And right now, inflation is still not at the level that they want it to be able to reduce rates. The Fed's aim for inflation to be at 2%, but it's right now at 2.8%. So that plus the concern about the tariffs and all of those kind of job-related things, all together, the bottom line is the Fed just said, it's a little bit uncertain. Let's not rock the boat right yet.
All right, Dr. Susan Macmanus, thank you so much for joining us. A lot going on in the world of politics this week. There were several big political stories here in Florida as well. They include Florida's own brewing storm over immigration enforcement. This week, Florida's top legal watchdog drew a line in the sand, warning the city of Fort Myers to partner with ICE or face the consequences. All right, let's bring in our Capitol reporter, Forrest Saunders, joining us from Tallahassee. And Forrest, you recently spoke with Florida Attorney General James Othmeyer. First, explain what happened here and why did the AG threaten Fort Myers City Council members?
Well, basically what he thinks is that they violated Florida's sanctuary cities policy. Basically, we have a ban against sanctuary cities across the peninsula and the panhandle. And so he thinks that by saying no to this 287G agreement, that's basically qualifying as a violation of state law. And what he's threatened is potentially civil or criminal penalties, maybe even removal by Florida's governor, which is something that he has in his power when an elected official violates the law. Now, there's a rebuttal to that, and you heard that from some of the Democrats that we spoke to as well, and they say, no, these are voluntary agreements, and the only thing written into state code is that they have to be adopted by sheriffs as well as chief correctional officers, and the city council is neither of those, and so they think that they should stand up and fight this in court. In the end, it really depends on what the city council does. I mean, they're considering readopting this thing in another vote, and if there are some members that again say no, I would say they have to watch out, because DeSantis has not been shy about using his executive authority when he thinks appropriate to remove state officials, talking about Andrew Warren as well as Monique Worrell out in the Orlando area, both state attorneys. So we'll have to see what happens here, but this is definitely one that people are watching.
Yeah, one that we're going to be watching as well. But what does it tell you really going forward in the future, this situation?
Yeah, I mean, it suggests that the state isn't going to mess around on this, and that they are going to go after any city council that might happen to reject one of these agreements. So we heard that from Othmeyer himself. He said that we are watching, and other cities should take note if they're going to go this route, that this is something that we believe is a violation of some of the new policy that was put in place during that special session. So not only is this an initial challenge, it's also a warning message to any other cities across the state that might not want to sign on to one of these agreements.
And for switching topics a little bit here, earlier in the show, a couple of minutes ago, we spoke with Dr. Susan Macmanus about President Trump's executive order to trim down the U.S. Department of Education. Governor Ron DeSantis was at that signing, and he recently penned an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal backing the idea. So what do you think this means for Florida's Department of Education?
I think the Department of Education here in Florida is safe, and that is largely because DeSantis has said that he believes the U.S. Department of Education is the problem. He wants to see it more returned to the states, right? And so the Department of Education here is something that he has his own pick as commissioner leading the charge there. And he believes that this is an important part of state government. Now, we do have a Florida DOGE task force that is going through state agencies and trying to find efficiencies. So you might see some paring back of some funding or maybe some positions that aren't filled, but it's not going to be dismantled like what we're seeing on the federal level. That's not in the cards at all. It sounds like, if anything, it's just going to be a little tweak here and there.
And quickly here, we're almost out of time, but we're also in the middle of Florida's legislative session. What bills are you watching right now?
Oh, so many bills. I mean, the affordability bills are the ones that we're watching pretty closely, but we're not seeing the big efforts to sort of repeal property taxes move at all. Those aren't probably going to happen this year. Instead, you're seeing some of the little stuff, right? Like sunsetting some local option sales taxes, or maybe coming up with a way to freeze your property tax assessment if you do some kind of flood mitigation. Some of those measures would still need to be on the 2026 ballot, and so they would still need voter approval, but it's not the big stuff that's happening. Even the bill's sponsor of that idea to sort of roll back and repeal property taxes says, hey, that's something that's probably going to take a few years to even get a toehold on. That's not something we should expect this year. So maybe some relief on the smaller end of things, but as far as property taxes, those are probably going to stick around for a while.
All right, Forrest Saunders reporting from Tallahassee. Everything going on in the state capitol. Appreciate you. More money could fill your pockets after you file your taxes. With 3 weeks until the deadline, we dive into the details of the boosted refunds next on Full Circle Florida. The average American is getting hundreds more on their tax refunds this year. That's according to the latest IRS data. There's just about 3 weeks to go if you still need to file your returns before you get penalized. Dan Grossman explains why people are seeing an increase and what it could mean for your finances.
I'm just going to put this disclaimer out there. If you owed or owe the government money on taxes this year, I'm sorry. Please don't kill the messenger when I say the average American is taking back more cash from Uncle Sam via tax return this year.
There's reason to believe that we'll continue to see higher tax refunds going forward.
According to IRS data, the IRS has returned $145 billion since the start of the current tax season, more than a 7% increase from this time in 2024. The average individual refund is also larger. In the 6th week of tax season last year, it was $3,145. In the 6th week of this year, refunds have averaged $3,324. For direct deposits, people are also getting bigger returns this year than last.
Even though we really like these big tax refunds and it can feel good to get a windfall and put them towards high interest debt and all that sort of thing, in theory, you don't want to get a giant refund because it essentially means that you have given the government an interest-free loan.
The biggest reason for the increase is the standard deduction, which the government raised by $750 for single filers, $1,500 for joint filers, and $1,100 for heads of household. The bump was to account for higher prices due to inflation. Tax brackets also changed, so some folks got to keep more of their money, even if their income didn't change.
That is not free money. That's money you earn throughout the year, and so you shouldn't just go spend it on a frivolous purchase.
Andrea Warrock is a consumer spending expert and says even though it might feel like a big payday, the best thing you can do is put that money towards savings and high-interest debt.
We saw balances hit all-time highs at the end of Q4. So if you're paying high interest, maybe 20% or more on that credit card balance, using that tax refund can help you pay off a bunch of debt quickly.
Dan Grossman, Scripps News Group.
Patients are sick of being denied health insurance coverage, and doctors are fed up with insurance companies overruling their treatment plan. So what are the insurance companies saying in response? What our investigation, Patient No More, revealed next.
It's no secret Floridians are paying a lot for health insurance coverage, but we're exposing the real cost to your health when insurance denies your claim.
All of us have been denied life-saving measures, so just make it make sense.
Think of a dice game. The outcome is uncertain, and no matter how careful or informed the player is, the outcome is ultimately left to chance.
It's out of control. Insurance is out of control. I have no other words.
Our 2-week series may be over, but the fight is far from it. Our ABC Action News I-team has been looking into how medical insurance denials are impacting patients and doctors. The series is called Patient No More, and we wrapped up the coverage with a 1-hour primetime special this week. For one of the many reports, we took the concerns, complaints, and questions of both patients and doctors directly to the major health insurance providers. ABC Action News anchor Nadine Yanez had the assignment to go after their side of the story.
As we've investigated health insurance denials, you have heard the anger.
The insurance companies have all the power.
Felt the frustrations.
There were times I felt like I would be better off dead instead of trying to fight.
Witnessed the tears.
You can't appreciate what it feels like to be in this situation until you are, right?
Doctors told us they want answers, but they're also willing to listen to health insurance companies.
I don't want to treat them like they're the bad guy. I want them to be at the table. I want them to work with us.
And my assignment was to give them a seat at the table to get their side. I emailed the top 10 major health insurance companies and dozens of their lobbyists. Not a single one would go on record. One lobbyist group declined an interview due to, quote, political ramifications. Cigna, Elevance Health, which includes Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield, and CVS Health, which represents Aetna Insurance, all declined to comment. Instead, all three referred us to their national lobbying group, the Association of Health Insurance Plans.
Hey there, it's Nadine with ABC Action News.
Which also declined an interview. Instead, sent us just a brief statement. In the fragmented and heavily regulated healthcare system, health plans, providers, and drug makers share a responsibility to make high-quality care as affordable as possible and easier to navigate for the people we collectively serve.
Healthcare works for a lot of people in America, but for too many, it doesn't work.
Cigna Healthcare's Media Relations Department pointed us to this video posted online.
We recognize that the way we will get trust back is not through our words. It's not even through our actions. It's through the results that people will see.
Still not answering the questions we have.
And in the pursuit to get the side of these health insurance carriers, I was met with a sentiment that the media is inflaming the stories that you are hearing, that doctors are performing unnecessary medical treatments and hospitals are jacking up prices. But none of these carriers would say any of this on the record. The outcry here is loud. Instead, I was met with silence.
Nadine joins us now in studio. And Nadine, you were really trying to get responses from these health insurance companies for a long time. I heard you at your desk.
Yeah.
What were some of the biggest challenges you faced?
You know, I think it was just trying to get anyone to really speak to me. A lot of the conversations I had were on background. They were never on the record. And I was okay with that at the beginning because I wanted to take a soft approach. Let these insurance companies know, look, we're going to give you 3 minutes of unlimited time to say anything. You're not talking about a specific case here. If you want to address the outcry, the outrage that you're hearing, not only from the patients that we heard from, but really across the nation, this is an open mic, really. You don't get that a lot from reporters, and I took a super soft approach, and no one would speak to me. Literally nobody would speak to me. I expected that from the major health insurance companies, but then I looked on Florida's lobbyist page. There's dozens of lobbyists for these health insurance companies that are talking to our state lawmakers right now. I'm thinking maybe they'll talk to me. I know you heard me at my phone calling. I mean, I'm not one to get told no a lot. Our reporters work really hard, and it's hard for me to get told no. So it was really difficult. And everything I was told on background was that the media is inflaming the stories, that doctors were not prescribing, you know, medical treatment that was necessary, and that hospitals were miscoding on purpose. I mean, a lot of other blame. And I said, well, let's talk about it. Let's come to the table. And not a single insurer would talk to me.
And no one did. So what do you think needs to change really in the health insurance industry to improve transparency?
Yeah, the first thing I think we were hoping for was empathy here, acknowledgement that people are frustrated, you know, life-saving treatments were being denied here. And then, yeah, transparency. How do we move forward? How do we build trust? We were sent some things from Cigna and United Healthcare about changes they're doing when it comes to communication. They said it's a complicated process. They're trying to work through that. If it's complicated, help us understand it. And the offer does still stand for these insurance companies to come talk to us.
All right, Nadine, thank you so much. And the Patient No More series does not end here. Just scan the QR code on your screen if you'd like to contact our I-team. Full Circle Florida is back right after this. Thanks for watching Full Circle Florida. We hope you'll join us again next week. Be sure to add our free 24/7 streaming news channel, ABC Action News Plus. There you'll find more in-depth reporting on the stories that matter to you.